Hello there, a very good morning and welcome to another edition of the Talk of the Town. Joining us this morning is attorney at law, Dr. Dan Malika Gunasekara. He is an expert in Admiralty law, law of the sea. A very good morning, Doctor, and welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Dr. Dan, now we're bringing you on this show specifically to speak about one very, tragic incident as far as Sri Lanka's environment is concerned. The Express Pearl, the fire that sunk the Express Pearl, and in doing so caused massive environmental damage to Sri Lanka, one that the world has never seen before. But now we find ourselves in a whole different predicament where Sri Lankan authorities have done close to nothing to recover the damages of up to 6.4 billion US dollars that was caused by this ship. What's the progress on this?
No, actually, Sharlan, you may know that this incident has become the largest plastic polluter of the sea and
in the world.
And with the sinking of this Express Pearl, we have suffered a huge loss to our marine environment. Now the scientific committee has determined, according to their damage assessment, that the damages and losses might accrue to more than 6.4 million. They have now calculated it to be 6.4, but they also say that it might go more than that depending on the scientific evidence. So in view of that, how are we going to now recover this? As in international law as well as under our law, we have the relevant legal instruments and techniques to have this case heard in Sri Lankan court and under the Sri Lankan law and obtain the maximum that we can get for the adequate compensation that is due to the country of Sri Lanka. So having considered that, there is no justifiable logic that I see that we take this action to anywhere in the world other than in Sri Lanka, because we have territorial advantage in having the matter heard in Sri Lanka and obtaining an award, as well as executing the order in London, maybe against the insurer of this particular vessel that sank. So therefore, it's just a matter of obtaining now through a proper legal suit with making the particular respondents liable to the incident and trying to obtain the adequate compensation that we require. So this figure is quite mammoth, and it's not a small amount that Sri Lanka should focus on in a situation where even we had been going behind the IMF to recover 2.9 million for the next 2 years.
Doctor, one final question. Now, decisions are being made on behalf of the Sri Lankan people. We saw how decisions were made in the past on behalf of the people that ended up making the people suffer for those decisions. Those decisions, at least, were made by elected representatives. But the decision to file this case in Singapore has now been made. We don't know if it's final because the case has not been filed as yet. But if this is a wrong decision that has been made, and if Sri Lanka suffers a loss of 6.4 billion by the case going the other way, and we're not getting the compensation that we are rightfully due, in addition to paying lawyers in Singapore some 4.5 million US dollars for their services, who will take the blame? Who will be responsible for this?
As far as I know, the Marine Environment Protection Authority, MIPA, has been asked to consent to the payment of these 4.5 million USD to the Singapore lawyers. But I have doubts whether the proper procurement procedure has been followed in the country. We do have a procurement procedure to be followed, and in order to select a certain lawyer or law firm, those procurement guidelines have to be followed. There has to be a due diligence that need to be conducted in selecting a suitable law firm or lawyers. So I'm not sure whether any of these steps have taken place, and we know that finally, if we are to get the 6.2 billion, we may not end up succeed in that in Singapore, because the the limitation of liability for maritime claims convention will come as a bar to our claim that we may only be able to get a maximum of about 19.5 million sterling pounds for the whole damage, that is inclusive of other cargo owners claims and so forth. So Sri Lanka will end up in getting less than that figure that I mentioned. So going to a foreign country and adhering to that particular foreign law is not advantageous to us. It's not advisable to us. This is why we have been very much of the opposition that